Content Jefe is brought to you by Pod Sound School. Studio Steve, audio and video producer, and Veronica, marketing expert, share with you wizardly strategies, mind-blowing gadgets, content creation ninja tricks, boss money-making ideas, and the latest news and chismes in the world of online creators and bosses so you can start creating better content, making more money, and becoming a content jefe. This geeky husband and wife duo will not hold back spilling the frijoles and sharing with you the good, the bad, and the ugly of being your own creative boss. Let's Jefe up.
Hello and welcome to the first episode of Content Jefe. I'm Veronica.
And I'm Studio Steve.
We're so excited to be here recording our first video podcast. In this episode, we're going to be sharing a little bit about our story of how we became content creators and business owners. And we're going to be sharing some definitions of words that you need to know that we're going to be using throughout the podcast so you know what we're talking about.
Yeah, and kind of what our mission statement is for this podcast and where we want to see this podcast go and all of those things.
Mm-hmm. And why we created Content Jefe.
So let's get right to it.
Okay, let's get to it.
Why did we create Content Jefe?
So the idea of Content Jefe came about after we grew tired and bored of our old podcast, Pod Sound School.
Yes.
We created Pod Sound School 3 years ago, and in our podcast, we teach it.
Teach it.
I just hope that you leave that there. Just leave it. Put it.
Teach it. We teach it. Oh, no.
I went to law school. We taught audio production and everything related to podcasting. But in our personal development as content creators and business owners, we were covering so much more. We were teaching about strategy, marketing. We were teaching about video creation. So we were so much more, and we felt limited with our podcast about only podcasting. That's why we decided that we wanted to have a podcast that would reflect where we are right now, that would reflect our talents and the things that we know, and also that we could help our fellow content creators with what we know, with all the experiences that we have accumulated and all of the things that we do daily.
Yeah, and also that we can more pinpoint onto our ideal listener, onto our ideal customer avatar, onto who we imagine that we could most help. And that's something that's always evolving throughout the course of your business. And that's something that's definitely evolved for us. When we first started the Pod Sound School 3 years ago, it was about helping podcasters specifically get better audio. And then, like Veronica said, it's now evolved into basically just everything content creation. And who we really help the most is small business owners, new business owners, online business owners, and content creators. So yeah, it was limiting to have a podcast about podcasting. So this podcast is still going to be about podcasting because podcasting is always going to be a favorite of ours. It's a favorite medium of ours. It's one of the most effective that you have to have in your arsenal, your marketing strategy as a business owner.
Mm-hmm. So who are we? You may be wondering, who are these two open nails? We are the Pod Sound School, and we are husband and wife. Yes, we're together.
We are a couplepreneurs.
Yes, we're sweethearts.
We're sweethearts. And we have hated each other many times throughout our journey over the last 3 years, but we always come back together with a common goal. And we're lucky that way that we have a common goal. I mean, obviously we have 3 kids, so that has... we have financial interests that are the same. Like we gotta make sure
feed the kids.
We gotta feed the kids and get them out of the house as soon as possible. But also we're really lucky because we have the same ideal person. We have the same person we want to help. We have the same business ambition, separate from each other. So it was really cool for us to come together. And what's interesting when we first started the Pod Sound Schools, we didn't really necessarily even know why or how. It was more of like a calling. It was a feeling. Veronica was a corporate lawyer, and I was doing video editing gigs and sound recording gigs on the side, and not being paid enough for our talents. Definitely not.
Unfulfilled, and just wondering if that was it.
Unfulfilled in our careers, and the thing about, I think that's why so many people start businesses, is because they get capped. You get capped out, capped off, capped on. They put
I
a cap
don't know.
on you.
I just said teached.
You taught it.
Taught it. No.
Teach it.
Teach it. I just said teach. Don't rely on me for English.
But you get, like in Veronica's example, she goes to law school and chooses prostitution. Oh boy, this is going well. Prosecution as her field of study. But it's like this thankless, hard, horrible, not horrible, but it's this thankless, difficult, like eventually your soul gets sucked out of you, and you're only ever going to make $30,000, $40,000 a year, right?
Yeah.
Depending on which state you're in. And
so, and not only that, like when you love what you do, it's the money is important, but something that is important too is that you love what you do, and sometimes you compromise how much money you make because you're doing what you love. But then when you start working in a field where everybody is miserable and everybody is just telling you to like run for the hills and look for something else, and they see your potential and they tell you day in and day out to go save yourself because it's too late for them.
Yeah.
Then I heard to that and I just held your hand and we started on this journey.
If you look at what we've always wanted to do, what's our vocation as in our lives separately from each other, and I'll just speak for Veronica because I love to do that, is that she wanted to give people a voice. Am I correct in that?
Yeah.
So that's prosecution is be the voice for people who otherwise wouldn't have one, and in giving someone a voice, giving them that channel for expression or whatever, you kind of add a little justice to life, which is a really beautiful motivation.
You bring your skills from your profession, you bring your skills from your background and your work experience, you bring it into your entrepreneur, business owner, content creator journey too.
And then for me, mine wasn't as much that. I think for me it was more providing or creating an experience for people, a little bit of entertainment. I love to entertain, but I also love to inform and to teach, and I like to try to inspire people or shake people out of their mundane life or out of their hopelessness, and just kind of help them to be more creative and encourage creativity and be outrageous sometimes, to be like, because truly I really believe that every human being is insanely creative. Like that's what actually makes us humans, is the fact that we're creative. And so it's important for me to help people unlock those creative powers and sort of return to their baseline self that they are and be creative. So those are sort of our life callings that worked perfectly into starting the Pod Sound School, and I think is the driving force behind why we've been successful thus far in our business. And then to sort of finish talking about where we're at and why we're here, we did 100 episodes of the Pod Sound School podcast. Really fun podcast. We experimented a lot. We put ourselves through the test. We were guinea pigs. We plan on doing that with this podcast as well too. But this podcast is specifically for small business owners or online business owners or new business owners or content creators. And it's our goal to unlock new creative powers and to figure out how to make better content and more money.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also a way for us to connect with those who are on the same path and learn from each other. So we're very, very excited about our podcast. And fast forward 3.5 years, we're here. We have made countless mistakes.
Yeah.
We have had successes. We had 150 students in our courses.
Yeah, and we have a YouTube channel that we've been posting regularly, weekly to, for over 3 years now. Like I said, 100 podcast episodes, over 150 students, clients. We've done brand deals, and we're supporting ourselves. We're making the thing happen. We're actually making money off of this, and we're getting to a point where it's going to hopefully hit that tipping point, and we want to figure out how we can make more money, how we can scale, how we can use our talents to reach more people, and how we can use content to reach more people. So with that, let's finish this episode off defining some terms, And this is really our terms for this podcast moving forward. And that's, what do we mean by the word better? Because this podcast is all about better content, more money. So what do we mean by better content?
So we used to think that, or I used to think that better content was content that was made with good quality. And I have changed that definition over the years. And for me, better content is content that is purposeful, that it has a strategy behind it, that it has specific goals, that is aligned with what you do and your purpose too, or how you want to help people, and that is made in a very efficient way with the best tools you have around.
That is really cool. So I agree with everything you said. And that brings me to the next thing I want to get some clarification on, which is, what's the difference between content and a product?
Content is free.
See, that's what I was going to say. That's the
content
good thing.
is there's paid content and there's free content. Free content is what we post online in the hopes that we are going to grow our communities, generate more leads. And there are all sorts of things that you can post about that will help you build your authority, that will help you connect with your audience, that will help you sell your services and products.
Yeah, I like that. Or it's, and then I think the other products, like for me, it's like, is a book content? And no, because you pay for a book.
You pay for a book.
Or is a Netflix series or a show on Netflix, is that content? And no, that's a film. That's a TV show. And you have to pay for a Netflix subscription. And it has a different process that it goes through. And in those cases, quality becomes even more important. But when it comes to free content that we put out, the most important thing isn't necessarily quality, even though quality is a big way that you can stand out, because there's so much trash quality of content that people put out there.
Yeah.
So quality is definitely a big one, but that's really cool. And then finally, the last thing, and I think is something that new business owners awake to this new reality, that it's like, if you don't have a lot of capital, you are forced into becoming a content creator.
And even if you have a lot of capital, then you're going to want content creators to make content for your brand.
Yeah, or you're going to pay influencers.
You're going to pay influencers and content creators
So
on TikTok,
yeah.
YouTube, to create content for your company.
Yeah, and a podcast. And we're going to get into this in future episodes. All of our content strategy that we've developed, we're going to talk a lot about that. We're also going to be interviewing some people when the universe aligns and when we feel like doing it, when we feel like it would be helpful for you. There's going to be a certain element of kind of surprise, and we're going to stick with that. If you are coming from our previous podcast, or you're coming here from YouTube, it's really nice to see you here too. This podcast is going to be available as a video podcast exclusively on Spotify, but also on YouTube. And you can get the audio version of the podcast anywhere you already listen to your podcast as well too. So I think that the takeaways from this episode are what we would like you to think about. Having clear in your mind, what is your content doing for you, and who are you trying to serve, and who are you selling your products to, and does that align with your content?
And if you want to continue this conversation, because why not? We are content geeks and we would love to talk about content all day long. Make sure that you follow us on Instagram and Twitter or TikTok at Pod Sound School. And this is it for today's episode. Make sure you follow the podcast, because this is where you're going to find us at our purest and rawest.
Yes, unscripted, natural.
Very minimum editing.
Very minimum editing.
Scary.
Yeah. We realized that some of our best little nuggets of wisdom and our best ideas come when we weren't recording on camera or in the microphone. And so that's what we're hoping to do for you. So stop by next episode. Every episode is going to be packed full of tips and tricks. Thank you so much for stopping by this first one.
We love you. Keep creating and Jefe Up.
Jefe Up.